Today's a very exciting day in Mets history. Before we begin, we want to make sure we're welcoming all our viewers on all the Mets social channels, on SNY and MLB Network. On the dais, obviously, we have Buck Showalter, Brandon Nimmo, Mets General Manager Billy Eppler, and Scott Boras. Additionally, we'd like to welcome Chelsea Nimmo, Angela Showalter, and Alex Cohen in the front row. And with that, I'd like to turn the press conference over to Billy Eppler.
Thanks, thanks everybody for being here today. We'll have a number of these in the coming days, but I do appreciate everybody making the effort to get out here and celebrate what's a pretty special day for the Mets. To be able to keep Brandon in a Mets uniform, drafted, developed in the organization. He means a lot to a lot of people here, and it was a pretty easy decision for us when we were going through the process, and Scott keeping us abreast of how things were developing. To make that commitment to Brandon. One of the things that we talk about, when we're going to extend a longer term deal to a player is, can we trust him with the contract? Can we trust his intentions? Can we trust the type of player, not only what he brings on the field, which is all-star ability on both sides of the inning, but can we trust the intentions? Can we trust the heart of the player? And so many people here think the world of him. I got to know him over the last year. Buck got to know him over the last year, and everything people kind of characterized was true. So it's a great day for us. Very happy for Chelsea coming here, and Brandon. Congrats, man. Nice to have you around.
Thank you. Yeah, from my perspective, just so thankful to be able to be coming back. I'm very, very thankful to the Cohens, to Alex and Steve, the front office, Billy, Sandy. Obviously, most people know here that I was drafted by Sandy, which is crazy to think about. 2011, first one, and Buck helping bring me back. And I think last season we had a great season, and didn't came up a little bit short of the ultimate goal. And I'm here to try and see that through. I'm here to try and see it through from start to finish. And this organization and the Cohens have made very, very clear, Billy's made very, very clear, the goal is to win here. And that's why, big reason why we decided to stick around and to be able to start your career with someone, be able to finish your career with the same team, that's something really, really special. And not many players get to do that, and we really get to continue to set our roots down here and be a part of this organization from top to bottom. From the charity work that the Cohens and everybody in this organization does, all the way to the performance on the field. We're very, very excited to continue to be a part of this, and very, very excited to continue this winning culture and this pursuit of a World Series.
With that, we'll open up with questions. When you receive the mic, please state your name and your outlet.
Steve Gelbs, SNY. Congratulations, Brandon. This is the first time you've gone through a free agency process. I know you stated really from the beginning of last season that you had interest in coming back here long term, but what was this process like for you? I know there was significant interest in you from other teams, and were there ever moments where you thought, this might not work out, I might not be back here?
Yeah, you always have to approach the situation as at face value, and you have to say, there's an option here where we don't end up back here, and you try to envision your life in other places and with other organizations, and I think it would be foolish of me to go into those meetings without trying to put myself in that situation and say, okay, what would it be like to be a part of this organization and this team? So yeah, there definitely were those times, but towards the end, the Mets just made it very, very clear that they wanted me back, and we wanted to. Like you said, from the beginning of last year, I've expressed my interest in staying here and what it would mean to be able to finish my career in being a New York Met. I mean, honestly, when I look back on it and finally get a chance to, being drafted out of Wyoming, you know, a lot of chances had to be taken on that. And, you know, to be able to give me all the tools that I needed to kind of hone that raw ability through the minor league system to now, here we go, now we're signing this contract and going to be in New York for the rest of our career, and wanting that to culminate in a World Series. I mean, you can't draw it up any better than that. So ultimately, yeah, I definitely wanted to stick around and you know, made that very clear. But you do have to approach every meeting as if, okay, what's it going to be like to be a part of this other organization?
Desire to bring him here for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, it plays a significant part. Like I was alluding to, you talk about the trust, and you want to be able to trust that, you know, 365 days a year, that, you know, he's you know, focused on what the ultimate goals are here. So getting to know him as a person, getting to know what he means to the community, you know, he's somebody that we feel really good about, you know, having here and you know, watching him continue to go through another stage of his life and his life together with Chelsea, right with us and being a part of our family.
I agree. No, there was quite a few nights here. Chelsea had to ask him, all right, is Chelsea here? You know, I hear this thump, thump, thump in the cage, or I'd leave late. And Brandon would be there in the dining room. I said, is Chelsea? No, she's not here. I said, I'm gonna give you some marital advice. You want to stay married? Get tomorrow morning. Yep. No, but you know, it really passed the field test, FEEL. You know, I love with Billy. You know, you go through so many different things, you evaluate, and then you step back and go, okay, how does it feel tomorrow? You know, Brandon. The thing I've always liked about Brandon, he's improved every year he's been here. He's always chasing that perfection that none of us will get to, but we try. And you know, you get to a point where you trust, you know, the human being and the mom and dad that raised him, and you realize that you know, he gets reality here, and sometimes in New York and in the big leagues in general, it gets away from you. But you know, he cares about making his teammates better, and there's a lot of sincerity to his game, and that plays here. And it kind of fit who we, you know, wanted to be, and projection that we'd like our guys to be about.
Mark Roosevelt from Sports Talk New York, one for Billy and one for Brandon. Brandon, you know, you mentioned that you want to end your career here and play here. When Edwin was here, and he said the same thing. He said that, you know, one of the reasons, obviously when you're a free agent, money is a reason, but one of his main reasons was that the Met organization treated him like family. When you were weighing that, how important was that for you?
It was very important because it is a family atmosphere here. You know, we hold each other accountable, and you know, we definitely want to get the most out of each other, but at the end of the day, I mean, we're all pulling on the same end of the rope. And the Cohens have been nothing but family to us right from the top. And to be honest, I think that's something harder to find, you know, throughout the league with ownership. But the Cohens have been in it right from the beginning, and you know, all the way from inviting us to dinner to figure out what they can do better in order to make this organization better, and that was everyone in the first year. All the way down to, you know, making the family room the way that it is now for us, and just trying to take care of all of the stressors that come from just everyday life that everybody knows about, so that we can just focus straight on baseball. And you know, we have been welcomed with nothing but open arms since the beginning here, all the way from, like I said, when I was drafted in 2011 by Sandy, all the way to Billy and Buck now being a part of this, and us getting to learn each other last year. We have cared for each other like family, and so yes, that is a huge decision, and something that Chelsea and I talked about when we were making our decision, especially with how we were treated in this organization.
Hustles, you know, 100% of the time, and you mentioned the fact that, you know, intentions. When you give an athlete here in New York that type of money, that's expected. How important was the fact that Brandon doesn't take a second off?
Well, I talk a lot about presentation, but also sincerity. It's kind of like you learn a habit early on, and if you learn good habits, like I chuckle when people might say something about Brandon running to first, whatever, because they can't do it themselves. Really, I mean, we all question the things that we're not willing to do, so I don't know, there's just a pure heart there about it, and it's the old expression, your actions speak so loudly I can't hear a word you say. It's kind of one of those things, it's the whole thing, it's just play better, and it's been fun to watch him get better every year he's played. So, and I think there's even another level. It's one of the top leadoff men in baseball, and they're hard to find. And I think where the game's evolving, I think is only going to help us with Brandon's skill set.
(2023) And what did Buck say to you that wanted you to come back here?
Yeah, I think there's always room for improvement. This coming year, I'm looking to be more consistent offensively. I'm looking to be more consistent in the outfield. I want to be able to I think one thing we might circle is stealing bases in the right situation. And so we'll work on that come spring training and in my training beforehand. But first and foremost, is just showing up to the field every day and expecting myself to get better. Someone told me you either get better or worse every time you show up. So I'm trying to get better each and every day. And at this point in my career, that usually means being more consistent. And that's usually the telltale sign of a great big leaguer, is someone you rely on each and every day. So I will be working on those things. And as far as this Buck and I's relationship throughout the year, that's what want to come back is. Buck and I are very, very similar in a lot of ways, and we did have. He's not telling you a story, when he tells you that I was sitting, in the cage, and he comes and he's like, you know what? If you want to stay married, you might want to go home, and so we chuckle about this thing. We have laughs throughout the year, but he also understands, the type of person that I am. Like he alluded to, we're chasing that perfection that we'll never get to, but we still chase it, and he understands, the preparation that it takes each and every day to be ready for a game, and how he wants to leave no stone unturned, and I'm the same exact way. And so our personalities, I think, and the relationship that we developed over this year definitely made it an easy decision to come back.
This was going, and you saw the acquisitions the team was making and quickly firing on the things they wanted. Did that want to make you come back even more when you saw that process kind of evolving in hyperspeed?
Yeah, of course. Right before the winter meetings, they made the huge signing with Justin, and that obviously started things off with a bang. And you thought, okay, is it going to keep going, or is it kind of just here's the big move for now? And boy, they just kept them rolling out that whole week. And so it definitely was shoring up. We had a lot of free agents from the end of last year, and so there was a lot of holes to fill. There was a lot of things to do, and there's always questions of can it all be taken care of. And I think with a resounding yes, Steve and the front office and Buck made that very clear that yes, we are going to win this year, and we are going to sign the people that need to be signed in order to fill those spots. And so. Very, very excited to get to know Justin, and very excited about all the signings. I mean, Jose Quintana, obviously we started things off with Edwin. So glad to get, such a dominant closer back. And so many good things that for looking from the outside in at that point. that okay, they're shoring up all of these places that need to be shored up. And so yeah, this would be, you know, looking down the lineup, looking at the starting rotation. Yeah, this is somewhere we could go, we could win, and continue to win. And you know, that's always a huge motivator in free agency is where can I go and compete for a World Series title? And the great part is I didn't have to go anywhere.
Changes. Brandon was thorough, much like his manager, thorough. You know, so each meeting would last literally 4 hours, have real discussions. So I think it was a process where he learned a lot, but he also learned what he liked, and then. You know, it was something where once we were done, we kind of said we're going to begin kind of the negotiating process. Steve and Billy and I got together, and it became very clear to me that, you know, we were on a similar path to do this. And kind of my negotiating style is if I find a place where the player's comfortable and what they like, and, you know, we kind of focus on one club. And that's kind of how we worked it with the Mets. And we were able to, over about probably a 7 or 8 day period, you know, reach a conclusion.
After Brendan's meetings last week, it seemed like once those were done, the deal came together pretty quickly by Thursday night, I believe. Was that so, that once he was done doing his homework that it came together quickly?
Yeah, I think the main thing was that, you know, free agency sometimes runs in pockets where teams are focused on sometimes the pitching market or, you know, a particular player. But the center field market became, once I notified them that we had engagement and that the negotiations began, we fielded, you know, a number of offers from the teams, and initially the primary focus was that, you know, Brandon kind of let me know that he was very comfortable here. You know, that Buck's managerial style and keeping them on the field had worked out really well for him. The environment, you know, the opportunity, and I thought Steve did a great job of you know, letting Brandon know at the forefront that you know, we're here to get something done. We're here to try to move this along in a direction of a focus on him. And when you have that kind of focus, you're able to you know, negotiate with a direction that is kind of market free. Frankly, it's outside the interference of other teams. So that's kind of how the approach we took with the Mets.
As an agent, sometimes you have players that are free agents that come from the same team. How does it differ for a player like Brandon who wants to come back as opposed to a player that was here? You're hearing
two different stories from the same franchise. Like, how do you balance that?
I think the idea is that what the player knows, sometimes a player's missing something when they go into free agency. And I think for Brandon, it was more that who would provide what the Mets provide and give him something additional. And that was a hard burden when you're talking about a winning intention, a winning design, because it was very clear from being here that Brandon knew that this club was going to have a winning effort every season. And that question was readily asked by Brandon throughout the free agent process in our meetings. You know, I'm playing for a team that I know will compete and want to win every year. You know, tell me what your ownership says about that. And so that's a hard question for a lot of teams, and there are some things that come up in this process where a player gets an insight about, you know, really living style, different geographical areas, you know, impact on family, all those things. But it was pretty clear that when we got done with the process that if the Mets had an interest to the level that we did, that we thought we'd be able to get something done.
In your dealings with the Mets, with Brandon and other clients, just how involved has Steve been throughout these processes?
Certainly he lets Billy do his work, but he's also someone that really gives you a clear picture about what his inline is as an owner. And there's a real fight in overcoming something that he inherited, and that is that, you know, the organizational talent depth has been a problem, and he knows he has to do more at the major league and free agent level to address that, and he's very clear about it, and always, I think, trying to make sure that this year's team is as competitive as it should be, understanding that he has to pull in the free agent area more than he'd like to, more than he'd want to, but that while that is something that probably any owner wouldn't want to do, he does it because it means if I don't do it, I won't be competitive.
How different is dealing with this Mets regime than the previous one?
That would be like, let's see. I guess going back to our old supermarket. You know, we're kind of in the aisle that where you're definitely understand that they're pretty much always after the premiums of the store, no doubt.
Scott, what has Steve done as far as baseball as a whole? I mean, where he's taken to the payroll, what he's paid for players is unprecedented in the sport. And you've obviously been a big proponent on the labor side. What do you think? What Steve? Do you think Steve has kind of changed the game here, or been a wake-up call for maybe where things should be going?
I think the problem we have in baseball has been competitiveness at a number of levels. We've always had a few teams that have been competitive, I think, annually, but the real thing with the playoff structure, adding teams, now competitiveness is something that you can look at maybe a level where it includes almost 60 to 70% of the industry instead of 40%. And that's what I notice. I mean, the Phillies getting in, being that last playoff team, and then doing what they did it's an invitation to understand that you have some flexibility to build a team and yet get into that playoff picture and understand that if you've got certain components, you can achieve your objective. So there's more ways to win now than there was before, and I think there's more belief among franchises and organizational staffs that we can build a club maybe that is not among the top 2 or 3 in the elite payrolls, but enough to get into where we can possibly make an impact in the playoffs to allow us to get there. So there's a definite change of belief where less clubs think that they have to rebuild at an earlier moment. They feel they can do more. And as far as Steve's role in the game is that, our game needs Goliaths. We have to have Goliaths. And, you can envision Steve Cohn hanging on to the Empire State Building. There he is, and it's maybe not Steve Cohn, it's maybe Steve Cohn. But I don't know. But when you're there and you're looking at it, how good is it for the game? It's really good for the game. Why? Because you always want that earmark that's different. You always want the way of doing it. We have analytic teams. We have clubs that are going to be in it for 3 or 4 years and then not for 6. And then we're going to have those clubs that are going to be in it every year. And I think it sets a great tone. It also reflects on the fact of when we go back to do our next collective bargaining agreement, that the revenues of the game have to dictate what we do in managing our collective bargaining agreement, not the fact that we want to create restraint. When you try to create restraint, you're hurting the game and you're hurting competitiveness.
Your organization has always...
What's that?
What is Michael Conforto's status?
Oh, Michael's in Arizona, doing great. He's throwing normally again, back full health, hitting great, and we are talking to a number of teams about it right now.
What is the Mets one of those teams?
What's that?
Are the Mets one of those teams?
Well, you'll have to ask Billy that.
Scott,
What is he looking for in a contract after a year away?
It's going to be short term, probably, a couple years with an opt-out.
Scott, how much did Brandon tap into you and the experience that you've had as an agent to help him with his decision-making process?
Brandon is more where our job is just really to give him information. He brought, we help him develop 6-page outlines for these meetings, and he had I think a lot of teams were surprised because, Brandon comes from a parent who's a CPA, and believe me, he took a strong accountancy approach to these meetings. he had a thorough group of questions for them, and it was fun to watch him and Chelsea work through those meetings.
In that vein, your organization has always prepared reports, for negotiation process, for negotiation purposes. With rule changes, how does that change? Like for guys that were great hitting against the shift, now the shift's out. Guys now pitchers that take a lot of time now with the pitch clock. How does that change your process?
Well, we did projections of what Brandon would do in the shift. Because you got to remember the speed players, not only being left-handed, that's one thing, but when you're a speed player and you can run like Brandon, and the second baseman now has to be more athletic, he has to be quicker with his throws, he has to have greater arm strength, he's going to be throwing with depth in the infield. It really, really enhances so much about what Brandon can do offensively, because contact means so much more to him now than as far as getting offensive production. And he's very good at that, but his speed is going to play a much more valuable role in his on-base percentage, and which is already an extraordinary strength of his. So we really did a lot in talking with teams about that. And frankly, it was no, when you have Buck Showalter as a manager, it was no news to him of any of this, I'm sure. So.
At what point did you realize that this was where Brandon wanted to be? Had he wrapped up all of his meetings, or were you sort of getting a sense during some of the meetings that he really wanted to come back here?
Yeah, the thing about free agency is that you go through it and you work for a team, but you really don't know until the process begins what their intent is. And once we started negotiating with the Mets and their methods of approach to the negotiation, it was clear that they were both aligned. They wanted him and he wanted them. So.